Hey, Mike here. Today I'm going to be covering the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis actually holds a lot that is relevant today. Where we come from, why we're here, and how we should live. And how we should view political and social issues in our world. Let's get started. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. First of all, this confirms that the universe had a beginning, and if you follow any of the Abrahamic faiths, this confirms that God created everything. So in the first word in the Hebrew is the word Bereshit, which means in the beginning. This is spelled Bet Resh Aleph Shin Yod Tav. However, in the Paleo-Hebrew script, it looks a little different. The symbols represent a house, a man's head, an ox head, teeth, and part of an arm between the hand and elbow, and a cross shape. The first two are obvious. The house and man's head, the head of the household. But this also happens to spell the Hebrew word for son. And the ox head represents ultimate strength, which was one of the strongest animals of the time, and this is a symbol used for God. The teeth are a symbol of destruction, followed by the arm and hand or wrist symbol, and then an actual cross symbol. This reads, "The Son of God will be destroyed with his hands on a cross." However, the symbols used, the word son, are in the head of the house. Now this is just beginning, showing this could be the plan all along. Keep in mind that we know he has power over life and death and won't stay dead. Interestingly, the word for God's name is depicted in the symbols for behold hand, behold nail. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Notice that there were no stars yet. I have an entire video on where light came from versus stars, and you should look it up when you get a chance. The links should be below. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. For anyone that gets confused, the word day is literally used to mean a 24-hour period. Then the Bible elaborates that there's a separation between light and darkness, day and night, called out to mark what he meant by the word day, because he knew in the end times people would get very confused about this. I get that many people don't believe this is how it happened, but that's how God has wrote it down through the prophet Moses. That is what the text says. God created the universe in a standard earth 24-hour day. Don't debate on if the Bible means 24 hours or 1,000 years when it says directly day, and then specifies the separation between night and day, dark and light. This shows a distinction between periods of working, with a weekend coming up also, and then uses the term day and the term night, which is not used to mean any other form of time. Day can be, but night's hardly ever used to mean a period of time. And then it points out that morning comes to start a new day. This day age theory is just dumb and is not what the Bible says. Either believe the Bible or not, but do not try to redefine it to fit your own views. Change your views to fit the Bible if you want. Now, the formless earth before the light, I can't answer how long that was, how long it was around. but I choose to believe it was still one day, in keeping with the rest of the context and the rest of the description being in 1 day, 24-hour day-night cycles. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate the waters from the water." God made a vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. Again, the second day here. Now the passage answers what the vault is. It's the sky. We know that the waters under the vault are the ocean. This is much simpler. And the waters above the sky, well, this is both easy to answer and can get deeper. Of course, the right answer is clouds, but on the other side is to say the rest of the universe. Without the sky, the oceans would boil off due to lack of pressure, just like what happened to the planet Mars. We do believe there was an atmosphere there, but the atmosphere just went away, and then the oceans over time boiled away due to pressure, not temperature. Continuing in the text, it says, "And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered in one place, and let the dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and gathered the waters he called the seas. And God saw that it was good." I know many people are watching this. They may assume that the dry ground is America, but if you spin your globe, you'll see more land. Half of that we're at war with. All this land was once united before the flood, and scientists call this landmass Pangea. This was the landmass that God created. I'll get into how it's separated later, but you can always watch my video on Noah and his connection to the story of Atlantis if you want. Continuing in the Bible, "Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to the various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seeds according to their kinds, and trees that bear fruit with seed in them according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good." Fun fact, the word kind here does not mean species. It means either the family level within the biological classification system, creating a unique sprout in what we call the orchid of life. Orchard of life, I mean. Plants do not contain what the Hebrew language called life, which is nefesh, and are basically viewed as more of a self-replicating chemical reaction that turns soil into food and oxygen for us, using sunlight and water. Now when I say sunlight, it gets interesting because then we read, "And God said, let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark the sacred times, the days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light to the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. And he also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give the earth light, and to govern the day and night, and to separate the light from the darkness. God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the fourth day." You should really watch my video titled "Let There Be Light," as it explains all of this from a cosmic microwave background, being in the visible spectrum in a much smaller universe, and how photons can be contained in atoms and stars and so on. Basically, the universe was full of light before stars existed. Both the Bible and mainstream science also confirm this. The light before was not from the sun or the moon to reflect it. Now God creates the sun and the moon and other stars. Whether or not the moon existed before day 4, I don't know. This is what many people would, or this world would be kind of boring at that point. So let's make it a little more exciting with this. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures. Let the birds fly across the earth in the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living thing within the water that teems and moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. He blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the earth and the waters and the seas. And let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. Now we have life, which is known as nephesh. We also have air and water, which are also full of life. They are free to eat plants to replace all the energy they need when they burn that energy flying and swimming. So what happened all over the land? God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds. The livestock, the creatures that move on the ground, the wild animals, each according to its kind," and so on. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, livestock according to their kinds, and animals that move across the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that they were good. All kinds of animals now. Now keep in mind that the word kind means family level of classification within a taxonomic rank, not species. And that'll be very important when we get to Noah's Ark. If you don't know why, look up the size of the ship and the number of species versus number of families of living creatures on Earth. Now there's life all over the earth, air, land, and water. Now let's go with something bigger. God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and livestock of the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move on the ground." Now he said, "Let us." So who is this? I covered this more in a video on spiritual beings, but basically God has a divine council of beings, which we commonly call angels. The "in his likeness" part is referencing having free will apart from basic instinct. And we have the ability of higher and abstract thought. This includes long-term planning, the concept of the number 0, negative numbers, true love, mathematics, and much more. Think about this. How many species in Earth's history have ever put a space station into orbit, or spent time above the clouds looking at the whole Earth? How many species have changed the shape of the land, changed genetics of their crops to make them fit us better, or made machines that can think for us? We are clearly very different from everything else on this planet. So moving on. So God created mankind in his own image. The image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. Yes, so it's an important fact here. Gender is a biological fact. If you are confused about gender and don't know what to identify as, a simple chromosome test can tell you. There's also a number of easier ways. So, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, and over every creature that moves across the ground." And then God said, "I will give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours, and to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that have life in it. I give you every green plant for food." So far, everything on earth and everyone was vegetarian, but that will change later. So far, no death or suffering exists yet, as far as the Bible shows. The theory of molecules to man evolution requires generations of death and suffering before humans even come into existence. And the Bible clearly does away with this. However, natural selection and creating new species, as Charles Darwin described with the Galapagos Island finches in his book Origin of Species, dealing with the size of their beaks, that's another story. The account of Noah, as I pointed out, will come up in a few chapters and will require this. But for now, the Bible continues, and it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was all good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. The constant reinforcement of the day, night, morning, next day is for anyone who is confused about this length of time during creation. A lot of people in the past have actually thought that it was impossible for God to create the world in 7 days because he's so powerful, he should have done it in an instant. In modern context, people try to make other theories fit into the Bible and claim that it was thousands or even millions of years. That's not what the Bible is saying here. And that is all for Genesis chapter 1. The next chapter will go into more detail with some very important events which this chapter either glossed over or never got to. So consider this a summary, Genesis 1 being a summary of the next few chapters. And if you feel that I've missed any important or interesting facts, feel free to throw them in the comments, and like and subscribe this video.